And welcome to the work session for the town board and a special meeting for the town board for the town of Ossining. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Madam Clerk, let's do the special meeting first.
Sure. Councilmember Harder. Present. Councilmember Jeffrey. Present. Councilmember Blaha.
Here.
Councilmember Wilshire.
Present.
Supervisor Donnelly.
Here. I just want to make a comment before we do this one resolution on the special meeting. There's been some discussion. There was some discussion over the last week that we did not advertise our public hearing on the budget correctly. Some people said we didn't put it on the webpage correctly. We had. Some people said that we didn't put it on the bulletin board. We had, but they'd come down all the time. So they were available in the clerk's office. But in our investigation, we found out that after we sent it to the Journal News, it did not get published in the Journal News. So to be absolutely 100% correct and not have any fatal errors, as they like to refer to them as, we're going to call for a public hearing tonight, and we will have a short, we'll have whatever it takes to have a public hearing next Tuesday night. And it's the same evening that we will have a resolution on the agenda to accept the budget. Should anything come up, we can always table it if we had to, but we will be looking to accept the budget next Tuesday night so we can all move forward in the month of December and start doing our planning for 2015. Madam Clerk.
Sure. Any other comments from the public?
From the audience?
From the audience?
Maybe the mayor?
Move on to Resolution A, calling for a public hearing 2015 preliminary budget. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby calls for a public hearing to be held on Tuesday, December 9, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. at the Village of Ossining Police Court Facility, 8688 Spring Street, in the matter of the 2015 preliminary budget for the Town of Ossining. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Entertain a motion to adjourn into work session.
Motion to adjourn into work session?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Just
Opposed?
going to make one last comment about it. We will put it on the webpage again. We will put it out in a blurb again, and that there will be a public hearing next Tuesday night if anyone's interested in coming. We will do exactly what we normally do. We actually put it up on the bulletin board and took a picture of it. So we wanted to make sure. And we, from now on, will make sure that we get the information from the Journal News, who is our newspaper. It's our official newspaper. And the reason that we have to have that is that it's a daily newspaper. We did do some discussing with the clerk's office about possibly, when it's a public hearing, putting it both in the Gazette and the Journal News, just to ensure that we have it in a newspaper. But we'll work on that as a operational issue. And but I want to make it very clear that the clerk's office did everything that they were supposed to do, and everything was posted where it was supposed to be. So sometimes these things happen. They're Murphy's Law, and we move on. We fix and we move on. So thank you. Okay, so tonight's work session is to go over any questions that the board might have. We had our public hearing last week too, but if there are any questions that the board had on the budget, Councilwoman Kim, I like it. Jeffrey had sent over some questions, and we can go over those questions as a starting point and find out where we stand. So, Maddie, you want to take it as the budget officer, and if anybody has any input, they can input it as we go along.
Yeah, of course. So, as the supervisor mentioned, we got a few questions about some budgeted items last Monday. So some of them are strictly budget related. The ones that have a little bit more to do with policy, I guess, I will leave to the supervisor to explain. But I'm not sure if anybody has a copy of the questions in front of them. Would you like me to read the question?
Yeah, let's know.
Okay. So in reference to your page 3, line item for SNAP, which is Senior Nutrition Assistance Program and also the Federal Program for the Aging. The councilwoman had some questions about us budgeting for 138.6. Do you want to look on with me?
I'm
or-
actually wondering where you are.
You
You said on page 3,
General budget,
the general fund.
general fund.
Trying to see if I have another copy.
Page 3.
Snap.
Got it.
Okay.
SNAP.
Um,
Does everybody know what SNAP is?
Senior Nutrition Assistance Program.
Program.
So
Snap, Crackle, Pop? Rice Krispies.
whenever we do the
Oops, I
vouchers
had
and
to
it
touch
says bread and milk, SNAP, in
Yeah.
parentheses.
SNAP.
So the question was, we had budgeted for SNAP 38.6 and for the federal program for the aging 10,000. And the councilwoman had questioned, to date, as of the date the budget was run, which was the 27th or 28th of October, we'd only received 17.8 for the first and 4,987 for the second. And so why are we budgeting so high? So the answer to this question is that we don't get the contracts in from Westchester County until sometime September or October. And so
For the whole- for
for
the
the
whole
entire year.
year.
So money that's supposed to be given to us for the year 2014, we don't even get the contracts to sign for those monies until September, October, November. We actually got a sort of mini contract a month ago that's actually going to tack on some additional funding that we were not expecting. It's called the WIN program, W-I-N. So we're comfortable with these numbers. We think that it's a good shot, and I don't believe we even increased or decreased them from last year because I think they're fairly steady now that the economy is a little bit more level than it had been in years past. And our nutrition manager Kathy keeps really close tabs on that money and making sure to apportion it to
Does an excellent job.
departments within her department. There are several different functions that the senior nutrition department takes care of. So the next thing is on your page 6, same fund, about the court officers. So as the supervisor pointed out last week, we found out that Governor Cuomo has vetoed the peace officer bill, which was kind of what we were expecting to actually pass so that we could save a little bit of money. Right now, what's happening in the court is we have a Village of Ossining police officer come and stand in the back of the court who is armed. I believe we're paying that person, well, we're paying the village for that person, but that person is off the village clock, effectively, right? So it's costing us a few $1,000s a month that we were not anticipating. So we were really hoping that this move would allow us to shift away from that our court officers, who are employees of the town, would be able to be armed, and thus the police officer would no longer have to be there. Unfortunately, because this didn't go through, we're sort of in a bit of a situation. What we had done when we were budgeting, and we were still optimistic that this was going to go through, there's a line for court security. And so we had originally had money in that line for the past couple of years. That's where it had been budgeted. In our very preliminary budget discussions, we made this decision, and this and a couple other different departments. If they're people who are our employees, part-time, they have to go in the part-time line. So basically, we gutted most of the court security line and moved that same amount of money into the part-time line. What we will have to do now is move some of that money back, because we're still going to have to pay our employees, and we're going to have to pay a village police officer under the court security line.
Can I ask a question to Wayne first? Because I've only partially understood all of this. So under state law, and I should know part of this, but I need more clarification. Under state law, they have retained ruling in terms of who gets to carry arms, and that's why, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how this all emanated. And so what you know, why can't the town, okay, so I guess my question is more clearly. Why does the town not have home rule authority to have constables who are peace officers or whatever other delineation so that people can be armed? I guess that's my question. Is that
Well,
a
we
state?
do have constables, and we do have.
Constables are different than peace officers.
Okay, that's
All
I
right,
need.
Constables
that's
are
where-
defined.
Peace
that's what I
officer
need.
slash court
Right.
officers, right?
Right, a constable is a specific title which is stated in the town law, but it's poorly defined as to what they can do. They, it lists certain very limited descriptions of what they can do, but it's not listed under the state law as being a peace officer. The issue about carrying arms really is more of a policy issue for the town as to whether you want employees who are not peace officers officially to be carrying arms while in the employment of the town.
Okay,
And what
so we're not precluded legally per se. It's a question of whether it's not that the state is saying that we cannot state that our court officers cannot be that's what
No,
I'm.
no, the state has to have, when it was a village court, they automatically have a peace officer.
Right.
They have a peace
Okay.
officer thing. We don't have that in the town code.
There's nothing in the
We,
town.
we
Towns, in
brought,
general.
we brought some outside contractors. Originally, we started them off as outside contractors and were told to make them employees. Once they became employees, we have nothing in our laws or anything that says we can arm them. So we were going after getting them as peace officers we wanted the state to make them peace officers, which gives them another characteristic, because in their civil service title right now, they cannot, they don't carry arms. And the thing is that what we did was, as part of our negotiations, so to carry that a little bit further, part of our negotiations with the village is to, and we're in the middle of that negotiations right now, is to not have, let's say, 2 court officers and a police officer, or have it where we have one, because right now, because this was an emergency when we did it, we don't have the police officer doing anything. He just stands there. We want him to participate as an active employee.
Don't we still have Alan walking around there with a gun?
No.
That's
They're
not-
not allowed to have guns inside the courthouse. Now, if they have a gun permit, if they have their own gun permit, that's their prerogative to do that outside, but they cannot have guns inside the courtroom. And, but he can, he's a constable too, so he can have that when he does that, but,
You have to
But so-
differentiate this concept of legally carrying a gun from carrying a gun in some official capacity to
Right.
use the gun during their employment with the town. I mean, you're not empowering them to use force, gun-related force in the context of their job as a court attendant, a court or court assistant or constable.
there's also very restrictive regulations if you do have a peace officer status, which we were looking forward to too, that you have to go out to the firing range twice a year, you have to qualify, you have to pass all of these tests and everything.
But so my question is, I guess I'm trying to figure out if the town wanted to create some law that had to do with restrictions of court officers and how being armed and these same type of requirements, could it do it?
Well, there's when you're talking home rule legislation, of course, there's any number of possibilities. I've been to the Greenberg Town Court, and I believe that they have court attendants or security personnel that do carry guns, but I don't know what the context of that is.
Well, you don't know if they got because
They
for
may.
a long while, each community could go to Albany and say, I want to
That
have
part
a
I
peace
know.
officer status, right?
Well, I want-
Also, yeah.
You don't know if they're employees in Greenberg. They might be
Right.
outside contractors.
Right, we could go out to completely outside
Well,
contract.
that's right. In the past, we had a part-time officer who worked for. He was the sole part-time officer for the town for a while.
Well,
But
didn't
he
we-
was-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. But he was a police officer as well.
Oh, that's what I was about to ask. I know at one point we were talking about trying to get some retired police officers to take
Right.
that job.
It didn't work out very well.
Well, and the other thing that, again, as I said before, we're negotiating with the village. Should we decide to use off-duty correctional officers because we have a prison here? We still have some options that we can look at.
The people who've been court attendants right now that we have been doing it for how long here?
I mean, when they were
Some
working.
of them came over from the village, some of them are new to us in general,
Right.
and then one has been doing it for the town for a number of years.
And he is a retired police officer. So you have it, but they don't have it in their title for them. The liability, and again, this is something we can we want to continue looking at. This is something we're talking to the village about. we had put our hopes in that, because of the fact that we did exactly what the governor asked, we can rehash that whole story again. We do it exactly. We're consolidating services. We're moving forward, that he could have seen past that. He wants it across the board, I guess, across the entire state.
He doesn't want each of the legislators going to him specifically and asking for each community. He wants it to be a slate across so that he doesn't continue to have to sign that legislation. And having said that, that's not going to happen.
It almost sounds like it's just as hard to veto something than it is to sign it, though, too. And when you have when everyone wrote letters up there,
Yeah.
everybody participated in the discussions with the state, telling him that we did what he wanted to do. So,
I think I'm
yeah.
just this is what I'm trying to parcel out. One, I was trying to figure out the legal part of it, which is we could, it's just whether we want to because of liability. The second part is I'm just kind of wondering what's going to happen with these court officers who we have now who have been doing it for, some of them have been doing it for some period of time, and then the cost to having a village police officer standing next to them. And so I'm just trying to parcel out what
As we
we're-
do at
Yeah.
every single one of our meetings. So, this is something that we're constantly working at. Some of them have, may not pass being a peace officer. So, you have to look at, we're looking at everything. We're looking at all the employees. We have civil service
That's
restrictions.
another huge
Unbelievable
hurdle, is trying to figure
civil
out what
service.
slot they would fit into
Right.
if they were to be armed but not peace officers.
Right.
The
That's
question
another
I would-
huge
We have
obstacle.
civil service questions coming out of our eyeballs on everything. So,
The question that comes to my mind is this, that if you're authorizing an employee to carry a gun while in the employment of the town, on what
Without, yeah.
circumstances are you authorizing them to use that gun?
Well,
Because that's a very key question right there, because then you take responsibility for any action that he or she takes in using that weapon.
what towns do it. I mean, we do. Municipalities do it as for police officers all the time. We happen to have
there's a tremendous
a
amount of
sub-
training that goes
Exactly.
on.
right. I'm just saying that it's not an unheard of liability in a municipality to have employees who are armed. It's just the difference, I guess, of
No, there's
under
there's
what-
not. I think in those circumstances, almost invariably, when it's permitted, they are either retired or off-duty police officers who are otherwise authorized to carry a weapon, and they're
Okay.
trained.
With constant training, not just.
Wayne, are we under any further liability if we don't provide an individual with a weapon?
Well, if there's this is why you do have a village police officer right now, because you theoretically could, if there was an incident in the courthouse where there was inadequate security, then anything is possible. You could be held responsible. Which is why you have to come to some conclusion on this issue, one way or the other.
Right.
That you have to provide a minimum level of security, a reasonable amount of security in the court facility.
You can go to some very small courts and, that have 20 people come in a day. We are an extremely busy court. We have over 100 cases every time that the judges are sitting. It is something that we have to take very seriously. There's a security issue, and that's part of what we're trying to work out between the village and us right now. So we can do it we can do it as cost effectively as possible, yet give the safe, have a safe place for people to come in to go to a courtroom.
Can I just ask one question? I don't know if I heard this. I don't know if I heard this right. Did you say there could be a police officer in the court, but with a court personnel?
One court, yeah.
Well, what good is that? I mean,
Yeah.
what's the one, the guy never no gun and one with a gun?
Oh, no, because really what you want to do is you want to give the atmosphere of safety. So let's say that what happens a lot of time, these court officers, one of them spends the whole time bringing stuff up to the, moving people through the system. So they're bringing the people up to the bench, they're bringing them back to where the prosecutors are, they're doing all that stuff. First of all, when you have somebody there that has, especially a police officer, it gives an extra sets of security there too. I would, and again, the benefit that we have in this particular scenario is that we have the whole police station right next door, where there's always somebody in there.
Well, that's good.
But-
They're there, but
yeah.
you're in here. Now, if somebody, you really piss, you got somebody really mad, and you take this guy that has no gun, you gonna make me go back to my seat. The officer is over here somewhere.
But if
No,
you have
no,
some,
wait.
yeah, go ahead.
Now, if this guy's came in for problems, he smuggled something in somehow, you are gonna get it.
Well, we go through metal detectors,
I
number
know,
one.
that's what
Number
I just
two,
said.
not even that, your cell phone your keys can't go through it, right?
I've been there. I know.
Yeah, so you have that, and you have the judges have the button right at the, and they're constantly being watched on camera in there, so they have ways of alerting the police next door, and there's always a couple of police officers in there because there's somebody always sitting at the desk. There's stuff. You're absolutely right. We could look, but then in the past we had people that may not 100% be qualified. So you work. It's a court. You're working in a situation. A lot of time there's police officers in the courtroom because they have prisoners coming in and out of there too. So
Right.
you have I think the advantage is, one of the advantages is that the police are right next door, as far as, and if something is going to happen, what you want to do is you want to make it so that take away as many of the things that might happen that you can at the most cost-effective price, but to ensure the public that they have a safe place to come to court.
'Cause, I was just thinking on when Fran, I guess, I don't know if you remember, Jeff, that when they didn't have
Right.
nobody in there,
Yes, I recall that.
and I, for one, thought that was a very, very bad thing.
Again, remember at that particular time, it was the town court, which was a much smaller, much less busy court. I mean, I went to court for a ticket a couple of weeks ago. There was no one there. There was the judge, the little lady taking your money, and the prosecutor was standing in the back of the room talking to you. So it was in a totally different town.
It doesn't.
Yes.
You don't have to go.
I see.
You don't have to go too far back. When I was the town prosecutor, that's the way it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I would
know,
set up a desk. I would meet with the people.
We went when we took on the court officers as our employees. We knew when we did that we didn't have a peace officer because we knew the village. We knew the whole thing. We made a conscious decision of having a police officer there. Westchester County couldn't do it. It was something in their contracts and stuff. And so at that particular time, so we went to the village of Ossining for to put more safety into the court. And you're right. Anything can happen anywhere.
You're right.
Okay? It could happen in the deli. It could happen. I mean, look at the news. It's filled with stuff no matter where you are, and people can be crazy. The advantage we have is they have the buttons under the desk. They can push the button, and they're on a camera system. I want to make it clear to everyone that the courts are constantly being monitored by the police department. They're on cameras all over the police station too. Their camera system go back to that.
Absolutely, and I absolutely agree. Safety is of paramount. I think my question is, what are we really going to do? What is it that we can do? We do have people who are employees who I'm sure would like to continue doing this job, and the question is, is there some
Some of
safe,
them,
cost-effective way to have them if that's what they've been doing? Some of them may be. I don't know all of them, but
you have
I
to
don't know,
you have to
but-
understand a couple of things. One, we have about 6 or 7. One, we only have court 2 days a week, and then every other Monday. So we have very limited court hours too. We're not open every day of the. It's not like New York City and stuff like that where the courts are open every day. So we have limited hours. We have some people. We have civil service issues where we have some people were on civil service lists, some people weren't. We're trying to deal with all of that. So we want people to be able to do their work, but some of them are going to have limited hours, and they have other things. They're either retired, most of them are retired or something like that, and some of them, we understand some people might be leaving on their own accord, to pursue other interests. So, we're working on this. Something that with our new liaison, Lieutenant Sylvester, we've been working on. He came up and met with us on Monday. That's when we discussed the bear coming to visit us today. But we're constantly working on it. And when it was very funny. It was very funny when he said, I didn't get, his emails didn't come up till the end of the day because one of the emails was, let's have our next meeting, type of thing. So we are working on it. So. Okay.
Okay. So the next two questions have to do with.
That was one question?
That was one
Pass.
Oh,
question.
my.
It's one of the meatier questions.
It was
It
not
was.
all of them
It
are
didn't
that.
look. It didn't look meaty, but it was. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
tough
I
because
mean-
there's so much to weigh. I mean, there's the money, there's the safety, there's the civil. I mean,
Right.
and then our employees. We want to, do right by the
Right.
people that work. There are a lot of components.
That was a meteor winner. Don't worry, I don't want to. I don't want them all to be that.
That was a good one.
I have my bunny slippers on.
Okay.
It's one that we've struggled with.
For years.
For a long
Maybe
time.
maybe
Years.
2 or 3 years.
And ever since the consolidation of the courts, when we were told by the Department of Labor, we thought we had it solved by making them contractors, but then we were told to bring them on board. So
That's how I know it's been a long time, 'cause I remember it when it was.
it's been
first
the whole
come up.
time I've been here, and then it was before that. It was before that when it was just the town court. So
The next two questions have to do with part-time help and office
Right.
supplies in the Department of the Tax Receiver.
right.
So I'm not sure if you want to.
Okay, so on the seasonal help, we want to make a suggestion to the, this is in the tax receiver's office. We don't have lines, I've been here 3 years, I'm here every day, and I've never seen a line at any of our offices. Our clerk's office, which does both the village and the town business, our assessor's office, and our tax office. There might be lines now on the second floor, because if we ever had a line, it was to do the on-street parking for the village, but we gave that back to the village last year. So we're very happy with that, too. So, but one of the things that we want to suggest is, should there become a time, some of the insinuations were that, we didn't have the coverage for lunch one day. That was a scheduling issue. That was just simply we do have a part-time, a full-timer that splits their time between the assessor's office and the tax receiver's office. And if they're not there and someone's on vacation, they can just schedule that. And what I'd like to bring up and suggest is, instead of bringing on a part-time seasonal person, because $1,000 won't even cut the training or anything, is working with the crew that we have. We have a part-time paralegal right now, and they go away when they go to meetings and seminars and stuff. It's usually on the days that he works, so we can have him if there's any. He can be trained if there's any payments that have to come in. We already have a system set up that if a title search company comes in, the assessor's office goes in there and lets them in. It's simply a question of taking a payment, which are very limited, and at the end of the at the end of the tax time. When there are 3 of them in the office, always, because the schedule on the assessor, ZAID/tax clerk, whatever that title is, because everything has a title in civil service, was always done with the tax receiver's office in mind first, and then the second day. The other thing that changed a lot this year, and I want to point out, and we have it continuing next year, is they used to print their own bills, they used to print their own receipts, they would stuff their own envelopes, they would do all of this unbelievable time-consuming work. We now send everything out. We started that in 2014. Everything gets sent out. The bills get sent out. The receipts get sent out. So there's just files that have to be sent out. So yeah.
If there's a paralegal who's there around who can,
Yeah.
I think,
And it's-
I think paralegals are great people. I am one. So I think they can learn lots of things
Exactly.
and be trained.
And
And
if
if
it-
they can do that, if that person can do that and go in there and be a
Right.
coverage for, then, I just think that backup is good.
and we do have, and that's what, and
When necessary,
Uh,
absolutely.
but we do have a lot of backup. We have the assessor's office, which has been very, very flexible and working with especially when somebody comes in for title search. Hopefully, it gets to a point too, when all the reassessment is done, is if somebody wants to do a title search, they just go, they can do it almost online. We'll eventually get to that point too. So I think that, it's bringing someone in to train and to have them there is much, much more than $1,000 too. So I think that what we'll do is we'll work with the assessor who has been working with the tax receiver. So.
Okay.
Oh, and the second.
Yeah, the
we
other
kinda
question
talked about some of that.
is about the supplies, but
Yeah.
I did also want to point out, when you made reference to the fact that there's only $800 budgeted for supplies, our biggest expense, at least in the town offices, is copier paper. And so basically, for the last 3 years now, we've been centrally purchasing that copy paper to the supervisor's office. So we have it set up upstairs. Individual departments are not paying for their own paper.
Yeah, I wasn't really talking about that kind of thing. The conversation had to do with
Oh,
the
the software. I just wanted to
Yeah, yeah.
be
I
Right,
mean,
so
I
now
didn't
I'll
mean
take
that-
on,
right,
yeah,
right.
so now I'll take on the software, as we spoke briefly
Yeah, yeah,
about
yeah,
it, you
and
and
I
I.
said,
So, what we'll do is we actually told, in the individual meetings with the department heads, we said this would be the year, because the banks are pushing you to go with, instead of depositing checks, to have them electronically done. If the banks can do it, the key to this whole thing is going to be the interface with our accounting program, which is KVS at this time. So, if it doesn't interface with that automatically, and they have to take all those runs and then re-enter them, it's very time consuming. So, but you also have almost every, let's put it this way, if we deal with 7 major banks, I'm just saying a number, it could be 10 major banks, but I'm just saying 7. Every single one of those banks is looking for electronic check deposit and stuff like that to alleviate that. So whether you changed banks or not, somebody's going to give you the software or the MICA readers, they're called, the MICA readers, to do whatever they have to do. So we feel comfortable that, and as I said to the receiver of taxes, that this will be the year that we'll actually move forward on that. Just to buy software, and we don't ever need 555 checks or 550 checks a minute, so we don't get those kind of checks. Our checks are quite large. Some of them are quite large. When we're receiving stuff, and a mortgage company pays all of their mortgages, everyone in this room could use the same mortgage company. So we're going to do that. The other thing that was brought up about that was saving interest. We are on the highest. We get the most interest. That the bank gives us more interest rates than the Feds do. The Feds would give us right now because we're a preferred account. What do they call it, Tom? Preferred account, or yeah. And so we've had that discussion on not being in the olden days, in the earlier days, way before the recession, or like in the 90s and stuff. You could
The olden days.
The olden days.
90s.
I know.
Wow.
I used to think the 70s were yesterday. So in those days when you could actually, when interest rates, I will be honest with you, when interest rates were real negotiable, you could do that, but interest rates are non-existent at this time. So you're not going to get it if you deposit one day earlier, that you're not going to negotiate with the bank at this time. We've talked to the banks. We're constantly talking to the banks. Our comptroller is with us tonight, and we are constantly working with the banks to find out the best ways to do stuff. And so we'll get it to that point, but the key is that it must interface with the KBS. And so as we told her that we would work on that this year. Okay. So we did that, and you were at that meeting with us too. Yeah.
Okay, so the last question on that page was sort of a general question about longevity.
Oh yeah.
Basically, we have the 2 unions. It's a contractual obligation. It has been for a very long time. And just for the public or anybody who's not familiar, basically after you've been in the town's employ for 5 years, you get a small cash payout every single year. And basically part of the reason is because of how much time it takes to start a new employee and all the institutional knowledge that is lost every time somebody changes over. So it's not an amount of money that would be a huge incentive to keep a job or go elsewhere, but it's something. Right. And so it's only unionized employees who get that. In the past, it's been given to appointed employees, but we only have one appointed employee who's been here long enough to qualify. So the board can certainly discuss that if and when it comes up again.
So I'll take on the next 2 questions. The next question was our labor council and what we did was we sat down and we are responsible for all the certs for the towns and the villages and the schools and everything. So we made a list of all the functions, the planning boards, what our two attorneys do, Wayne being one of them, Mark Reisman being the other one. Mark is also our prosecutor, and he takes on tremendous amounts of V&T. So we worked out what
A tremendous amount of what?
vehicle and traffic.
Oh, I
traffic.
was like,
Yeah.
what's V in
I know, yeah. So,
Okay.
we worked at, we came to a conclusion that to come in with like even making 50 cents an hour instead of, that was a good rate. They're both employees. They do not bill us separately for anything. I want to make that clear. Neither of these two attorneys bill us for anything. They take care of some of our smaller lawsuits. They, if somebody, we have a lot of people put us on, what is it called?
Notice of claim.
Notice of claim, thank you. I was going to say people of claim, but notice of claim. So they take care of that. Some of it goes through our insurance company, but you still have to have one of your attorneys with you. They do not take care of labor counsel. Labor counsel is a separate
Specialty.
specialty that we do, and they don't take care of tax for our tax. Our tax attorneys for our foreclosures and stuff is a separate attorney too. So, but for the most part, our two attorneys take care of a tremendous amount. It's not like we sit here and we go, oh, we have this thing, and they'll go, oh, let's get a specialist in. Because in some communities that happens a lot.
It was just a huge.
Because
bottom line,
because
I
he
checked
was
this.
he went from working. Because one of the things that we also did was we used to pay more for the village prosecutor, and we cut that down because we use them less and less. So we pay half of what we originally were paying for the village prosecutor. When we actually sat down and looked at what the different functions that people did, we came to a conclusion that this was the proper thing to do. The next one we'll take care of in executive session.
That's fine.
Okay? Engineer consultant, which consultant is this? What's that line, Maddie? That's the planning board?
Sorry. No,
That's
it's not.
Page 21.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to just take a quick hop back to the one before because this is a similar situation. For the engineering IMA that we have with the Village of Ossining,
Right.
we basically have divided it across funds. So there's an engineering line in the general fund. That's this one that you've pointed out in the 10 fund.
Right.
And that's 10%. Every month they pay 10% of the engineering cost that the village bills us.
Okay.
The cemetery also pays 10%.
Okay.
Okay? The 20 fund pays the remaining 80%. And
Why
the-
does the cemetery pay 10% of engineering?
Because
sometimes the engineers
we need
work on
him
projects
to
in the
work over
cemetery.
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So wait.
We need him to give us advice as to what certain things are,
There are
certain
drainage
things
issues,
Right.
sometimes road issues, walls, things that have to be looked at.
Okay,
Right.
so 10% general, 10%
10%
cemetery.
And then the rest all goes to the 20 fund. And the reason why it's not 20 and 31 is because 20, which is the unincorporated area, which is police and building, zoning, animal control, and 31, which is highway, snow removal, whatever, it's a blended rate. So you're serving exactly the same constituents with those two funds. So if you put it all in the 20, all in the 31, or half and half, it's not going to make a
doesn't matter.
difference.
Doesn't
It's
make
the same. And because most of the work that we've done with Paul and Andy has been paving, all the capital projects have been in the unincorporated area.
drainage problems,
It
yeah.
only seems that should be the distribution. Again, if it needs to change,
No,
it can
it's-
change.
It's a good distribution.
And then the labor council is similar because most of our staff is in the 10 fund. Most of the charge for labor council, his retainer, goes to the 10 fund. Then 30% goes to the highway fund and 5% goes to the 20 fund for the building department.
So it's all well calculated out, and one of the other questions further down, I think it is why not do it the engineering by project?
Right, why
that's
are
why
we
they-
not doing it? Yes.
Okay, so when they did it by project, that's when they spent like hundreds of thousands of dollars. I have to say that the move to these two gentlemen was one of the best things that we ever did, and we did it so fast. We did it within the first 3 months of this administration, and they have paid for themselves 100 times. I mean, they have their own projects in the village because they're the village engineers and water department too. But I mean, you know what they did today? They were paving the dead end. So now all they have to do is put up the guardrails, and now we're
At Albany.
at dead end at all Albany Post
So
Road.
those outside things are in.
Everything's in.
Really?
I'll
It's
go take a look now.
Yeah, you know, and again, they still had equipment down there. You know, we got some emails, and we have and Brian, the gentleman that sometimes comes to the meeting, is our ambassador, is our road ambassador, and he has done an exceptional job. And he makes sure everybody knows exactly what's going on. And during the snowstorm, the guy did have to back, you know, because they had this big equipment down there still, the Wednesday snowstorm, so they had to back out a little bit, you know, to get out of that road. But they'll be able to make the turnaround at the end. And this is such a major. But again, these are the two, especially Paul, that put together this whole drainage issue on Cedar Lane that ended up costing us $200,000 that we were estimated at paying $2 million for. So they have really paid for themselves over and over and over again, and it has worked out very, very well. And plus, then we would have to spend more time watching who was doing what if
Right.
we did a piecemeal like that. Yeah. Okay.
The next
Oh,
question is about rent for
Yeah.
the space in the court.
They own the building.
It's a good question, but they own the building. So the question was, since we consolidate the court, we're doing the
We are the
operationally,
court.
why are we paying them? And
Yes.
the answer is because they still own the property that we are operating inside of. The village basically dissolved their court, and if they were not friendly neighbors of ours, they could have said, "That's all you."
Go move.
Find yourself a court.
So luckily, they have been cooperative partners in that they have shared some of the expenses.
Okay.
In this
We always-
particular case, we are in charge of this expense.
We always paid rent when the
Oh,
town,
yeah.
when the
There
town
was
court,
yeah.
when
But now
when
it's
there was
all
a
us.
separate town and village court, the town paid rent.
Because they had
For
their own
years.
their offices.
But that
and
makes
everything.
sense, because
they-
we were not consolidated, so I was just
Well, the
trying
courts
to
are
figure out
not-
what happened once we consolidated.
Well, you know what,
No,
if
but
the
this
use of the,
is what we're good.
just so you know, the use of the term consolidated is, I mean, it's used in its vernacular way, I mean, but it's not accurate.
It's a
Okay.
town
Because
court.
it's still a town court. There's no real consolidation because the village just eliminated their court. The village and the town court always had the jurisdiction to handle all the matters that, the town court always had the jurisdiction to handle all matters that were handled in the village court. But it wasn't, the vice versa
I-
wasn't the case.
I understand.
So it's still, it's a town function being
Right.
carried in a village building.
And so very similar to.
Looks like this.
We rent our offices upstairs. Wait a minute, I'll tell you another one, is the town village clerk. We rent those offices because it's a town, because the clerks work for the town. So we pay rent for that space, yet they pay us, they turn around and then they pay us an IMA for the services of that department. And they,
That makes sense.
it's,
I'm being quiet.
Interesting.
yeah, it's almost, and remember, the same thing happens in finance. We don't pay them rent in finance, but we pay for the services of the finance department, and we have a little box that where our stuff goes in. We have a file drawer, right, Tom?
We have three, actually.
You also pay rent for the building department as
We
well.
pay rent for the building department. We pay rent for the senior nutrition program.
But the building department is, I correct me if I'm wrong, but that's different because our building department only oversees the unincorporated town, right? It doesn't go
Well,
to.
in the
But the
building
That's a
department,
different
right?
issue than the town clerk or the courthouse, to me.
Okay.
In my estimation, there's some delineations of that. So,
Well,
but okay.
again, it's a town function happening, and we don't, to be honest with you, our biggest building that we own is the highway department. So
The only
we don't
building,
own
no.
buildings, and you know what? More and more people, what?
It's the only building, right? No, I guess.
Oh, we have
I
the
guess
Parks Garage.
Right,
if you
okay.
if you
So we have, yeah.
call that a building.
And more and more municipalities are going at, they're saying, let me rent space. It's almost like the schools renting the space over at, where they move their administration to, over on Executive Boulevard. So you're renting space, because you're right. You shouldn't, it's a town court. We're responsible for the whole thing. That's why, we write Dear Landlord letters about everything. So, and we do it. It was like when we were negotiating the senior program. We wanted the ceiling redone in the offices, and part of the agreement was that the ceilings all had to be redone, and they were done like 2 days later. They were, so that's that's what happens.
We have conventional form leases for the space.
Yeah, literal leases. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
Do you want to take the next one too about the franchise fees?
sure, the franchise fees we moved over in 2013. Our share of the franchise fees, we moved them over to the unincorporated budget. We made a decision to do that. That was the year we actually moved $144,000 to the unincorporated as a revenue, and we took $144,000 out of our fund balance in the town general so that we could balance the budget, and then made up for it tenfold at the end of the year. So we did extremely well, putting it back into the fund balance. But
Can you,
go ahead.
I don't want to glaze over that. What do you mean by that? How did we do better?
Because when you constantly watch your budget, when you constantly monitor things that are going on, sometimes, and that particular year we had better, we had Sandy. Sandy was a lot of money came in for Sandy, and then we managed to stay within our budgets as to what we spent the Sandy money on. So because what you do at the end of the year is you say, this is my budget. This is the best I can do, this board can do, to put together what it's going to cost us and what revenues we're going to get in. We had one year where we had very high sales tax. Our requirement was very high sales tax. We worried about whether we would be able to make the budget or not on the sales tax. So we very, very, in a lot of cases like sales tax and mortgage tax, we are very conservative. So we say we're going to get $700,000 in sales tax. We might get $800,000. So we already have $100,000 going into, and we don't go into say, willy-nilly, let's just spend it someplace. We go and we say, okay, goes into our savings account, which is our fund balance. This particular year, last year, in 2013, our fund balance went up over $800,000. That's why we were comfortable taking out 158, so we didn't have to cut any services to bring the town general budget down. The unincorporated took care of itself. So it's the way it's just that you have your revenues, you have your revenues, and then you have your expenditures. And if you constantly watch it's the simplest things as doing centralized purchasing for paper. We probably cut our cost of paper in half. Easily half. Because paper would just go home. Paper goes home. We centralize purchase down to the pens. It's not like the old days where you used to go to the half door and say, could I have a pen, please? Or could I have a pencil? You're too young to know that, but I remember those days.
The olden days.
But what happens
The
in the olden days,
In
in
the
the 70s. In the 70s, it was definitely that. But now what you do is you put in your order for your staples or whatever order, and you send it, and it goes up to Maddie, and Maddie has to approve it. So you don't buy Martha Stewart calendars, or you don't buy, pretty paper.
Don't laugh.
You don't buy. Everybody buys exactly what they need, and we go a little crazy. So once in a while, somebody will have a 1-cent sale, and next thing you know, there'll be 1 million cups somewhere. But everybody has learned to control their supply. So it's as simple. I'm trying to take something that's small, but all those things of constantly watching your budget's, constantly signing we sign double sign every single invoice that goes in. We check it. We know. Controlling what your people pay for. We put the people in the uniforms. They have a uniform allowance. They can't just go buy anything. They go to we set up certain stores that they can go to, shop local, and they go and they get their clothes, and they can only buy certain clothes. They can't buy an extra pair of boots because they feel like having boots or something like that. So it's just constantly, it's managing. That's what it is. It's all about. So you're constantly doing that. And we have been very, very good. That doesn't mean that it doesn't get harder and harder and harder to do. We were very lucky this year. We sold the police station and we switched the police departments. But But you can't do things like, one of the things was, why aren't we getting a big tax decrease? Well, if we did a tax decrease, let's say we gave somebody, we took off $100. Next year, we don't get to go up that and then put the 2% on. So we have to be very careful, and we have to put money in. We put a lot of money into contingency, a lot more than was stated at the town hall meeting, and we'll use it, and we'll be very, very careful. We don't let people come in and just because something's a capital project, the biggest capital project we've done in the 3 years that, your year and our 3 years that this board has been going was this old Albany Post Road dead end. But the alternative was to buy 8 houses or have something where we just had to do something there. But we don't let people tag on all these expenses. We watch it. We see every time a bill comes in to be paid, it has to be reviewed. It's reviewed by the finance department. It's reviewed by the supervisor's office. And we call them engineering and so much more. We go over every single thing that we're working on. We're going to go over the capital projects next week. We're going to find out what needs to be done. How are we going to do it? How are we going to do it that it's safe? How are we going to do it that it satisfies the residents of Ossining? And how are we going to do it where it's the most cost-effective but quality work that we can get out of it? And one of the other things that we did is we started using the village has annual bidders, and we started using their annual bidders. So you don't have to go out to bid, and you don't have to do this big process that do everything. So we have annual bidders for things like paving the roads and concrete work and well, that's our sanitation. We sit with our. That's a good example, though. We sat with our private sanitation guys. We put out an RFP for that, and we told them. And we were very, very lucky that Yorktown was being very, very adventuresome and saying, let's really start taking everybody to task. And we got a excellent the same guy that did it, outside contractor, to do it for the same price. And this year, after we were told that it's going to be bulk pickup once a week now instead of once a month or whatever it was, or 4 times a year or whatever it was. Yeah. And before it was ever allowed, we had to have in writing that this was not going to cost 1 penny more. And the owner of Suburban Karting wrote it all out. Just he knows exactly what he has to do. We stopped a tremendous amount of stuff, like cutting down trees all over the place. And, now we have it where it has to go before the building department. And it has to go, because people would just go and cut down trees. Whether they just went and cut down trees or our guys went and cut down trees, And so it's really just constantly working. It's a business. That's where it's totally a business when it comes down to it. And my button has come in fabulously. so that's it. That's
Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's Maddie, wasn't it? I forget about it for days at a time, but then I remember.
I just want you to know that this was a question about just where the franchise fees go, just so you
So,
know.
okay, so, and I didn't even
what
get
my
to the
follow-up
answer.
was.
Yeah, you had a follow-up question, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't say it, pal. You got
Okay.
it. You got it.
Okay, so I just want to say, but there's another fee that we get from the cable companies, and it's called a PEG fee, which is Public Education and Government. And those PEG fees have to be used for, what they call capital projects. That projector comes out of your PEG money. It doesn't come out of somebody's budget. Those cameras come out of PEG money. And so right now we just signed our new agreement with Cablevision, and now I just wrote to FiOS and said, come on in-house, come on in, and start showing us the PEG money, because everybody negotiates.
So
that.
is it the PEG money that goes towards the whole Go TV stuff? I guess that's what I'm
It's
trying.
the hardware.
The hardware for Go TV. Okay.
But the camera.
So okay.
And TVs like in your conference room as well?
Yes, and the TV in the conference room, and and that projector.
And so whatever,
the
I don't claim
Yeah.
to know how this. I mean, once this goes, they have a room, right? Doesn't Go
Oh, there's
TV
a
have
whole room over at the
Right.
rec center.
So I guess I was trying to figure out whether it was franchise fees or PEG fees that went towards upgrading, because, there's a conversation, right, that we have about how do we do better with getting, so we're not in the olden days of the 90s anymore, and we're in 2014, so we're trying to figure out how to YouTube our information.
We do have it on
how's
YouTube.
Right, well, I'm just talking about the fastest or best way, and so I was just trying to figure out,
There
this
is-
question was
yeah.
just about where's the money come from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Franchise fees aren't dedicated to anything in
Okay,
particular.
it's just,
Fra-
it's revenue,
franchise
that's
fees
just
is a-
revenue.
Yeah,
Right.
Franchise fees is just
That
revenue.
was kind of where
Yeah.
my question was. So
Okay.
franchise is revenue, PEG fees, whatever, and whatever we
Pays.
utilize is what we utilize on a, is there a line for GoTV that we have?
We
for
have
budgeting?
only thing that we have on GoTV is actually the physical human beings that do the filming.
That's the only line, that's
That's
what we
GoTV.
have in that
And
line.
that's-
I believe it's a
budgeting.
separate bank account.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's
we
not
pay
part of the budget because it's not an
yeah.
expenditure.
We pay
out.
for GoTV videographers because GoTV means Greater Ossining
Right, so what about, okay, so then the PEG money,
Right.
is the hardware.
so how, when?
The PEG money isn't coming from our taxpayers, so it's not part of the budget.
So it's not part of, okay, so it's a separate, and so.
But it's only can be used for that.
So we can have a different conversation a different time about how much that is and when we get it and all that, but that's different.
And also the rules and regulations on how we have to film a certain way. We're not allowed to edit our meetings. We're not allowed to do stuff. It has to, like people say, well, I want to do it this newfangled way. Well, we can't do it the newfangled way because we're restricted by law on how we have to maintain our files and everything. So
We can
we'll
have a
talk
whole
about, we can talk
conversation.
about it
That's
another
fine.
time. Okay, moving on. Yeah.
Well-
Oh, yeah, okay.
I actually did have a follow-up question that
Okay.
that I didn't ask, and that is on the,
What page are you
it's in the unincorporated fund,
on? Okay.
page 1
Mm-hmm.
of 27, prepared by Maddie.
Of revenue or?
I think that's revenue.
If it's page
Oh,
one.
okay, yeah.
Yep.
So we have here, this is what you said earlier, Sue, I think you said moved franchise fees for adopted budget from general fund.
In 2013. See how it says 2013, moved franchise fees from
Okay.
adopted budget from
So
general.
then in 2014, does this mean our revenues in 2014 were almost 63,000?
No, that's all we've gotten so far.
That's all we've gotten by October
Right.
28th.
Remember, this is only
I
to
see.
date.
Oh, I
to
see.
date.
Okay.
So that's where it gets
That's
a
the
little
same
confusing.
issue that I had with SNAP or with the mortgage recording,
Right.
like, or the sales tax, we haven't received
You have
all
to,
of
you
our
have to,
stuff yet.
some of the stuff doesn't, we don't even get till the new year. So we go into January and February that we're still getting revenues and we're still paying invoices. So when we have in January and February where we have this year we'll have 2014 bills and we'll have 2015 bills that we'll be paying. So you'll have two different voucher numbers and then it will be a combined number. So we're behind. But we can tell, let's say sales tax or these things, we can tell how it's going along. We
Right.
can tell that, we're going into our biggest quarter of sales tax, so we're very comfortable we'll make our numbers.
Good.
But we're constantly looking at these revenue numbers too, so.
And just a quick one, I hate to nickel and dime the budget here, but just out of curiosity, just because we had talked about alarm fines, it's only one line or two lines below where the franchise fees revenues were. Alarm fines, I thought we were going to be, with change in policy from going from a summons to a fine, that the alarm fines were going to be bumped up dramatically. But it
Well, we
shows-
have to look at our fee schedule then.
But it shows here that we're actually budgeting revenues on alarm fees lower than 2012 and 2013, which were, I believe, before we implemented the alarm
Well,
fine.
okay, so
wasn't
to
it?
clarify
so we're going
that,
down in our revenues.
to
instead of
clarify
going
that,
up.
we
Because
used to-
people
no,
know about it
yeah.
now, and so
to
they're
clarify
gonna
that,
do it.
to clarify that, we used to put alarm, if somebody got a fine for an alarm, it would go on their taxes. Okay, now they get it like a summons. So we set up, it's almost like a building violation. The better you do at it, the less revenue you bring in on those things, right? So we initiated a policy because what would happen is somebody would get let's say they got their town tax bill, and the next thing you know, there'd be $2,000 extra on there for alarms, and they would never know it. So now the police leave a little thing on the door, your alarm went off, they call their guys, they get their alarms. I mean, 90% of the time, it was broken alarm systems that would go off and go off and go off,
So the plan was actually to reduce the fines with better,
Well, it's
with
to.
people self-monitoring their own alarm systems,
Right.
so the police.
And I
can
have to
act.
say that Sandy Sandy took out of the building department, took the alarm. She gets all the alarm. She's gotten a lot more people. You're going to see the revenue of alarms, people registering their alarms is increasing all the time. And now people take care of them more because they don't want to pay, and they get like 2 times that they can have their alarm go off, inappropriately. 3, is it? 3? Oh.
On that note, I would like to draw your attention to the top of page 2, so the next page. The building inspection fees. They have been doing such an outstanding job in the town building department. You can see when this report was run, the actual to date was just shy of $83,000 when the budgeted amount was $65. So we'll probably be coming in on that line roughly $40,000 over in 2014, if not more. So any, the slight difference I'm seeing on the alarm fines that you pointed out, I think we'll probably make up a little bit more of that, but it pales in comparison to how much that same
And
department
that's
is going to
building
collect
permits
over.
too, right?
Good, okay.
That's building permits, and so when someone comes in, we had a couple of very, very good years when GE was doing a tremendous amount of work up on their campus and pulling building permits like crazy. And as we look at different things, part of what we look at is we look at what are the building fees going to be? What are the rec fees going to? What are the what are all the fees going to be that we can look into this project about too?
I don't want to get into all that fee, but there's a $25 copy fee that I think is ridiculous. Just so you know.
Okay,
The fee schedule actually gets adopted in January, so even after the
We
budget
can-
is passed,
we can
there's
talk
time
about
to
it. Talk about the
Yep.
fee
Just, there
schedule.
was only a few that I was like, wow.
But some of our fees are very, very low too.
That's true.
Okay, so all right, let's moving on.
The next question is pretty quick. 507 North State Road storage. It's $1,500 a month for the attic that we're using.
It's not quick because we're talking. I want to know whether we can,
Yeah,
how we're gonna switch that.
right. So there's a grant that the town had started in 2011. I'm not sure if they'd done it prior to that, where the town clerk's office had gotten all of their old records to be on Laserfiche. That's what it's called.
It's Laserfiche. not
So now
Scan.
it's so much more accessible. It
It's not
ended
scanning,
up
can't be
being
scanning.
kind of a bear in terms of administering with the state agency. So we might do it through the state agency again, but there are other grants that are not through New York State archival unit for scanning. So
Or scanning or Laserfiche. And the
Right.
other thing is that we have to work with the village on that too, because they have tickets, they have storage everywhere too, of all these old police reports. So what we're gonna do is work together with them on that. And we have we put in a 90-day out. So if we started on that lease that we signed for when we have the entire attic, because it is police
Right.
reports up there. So we have a 90-day out. We made sure that we put that in there. Yeah,
But
for the former. police
I mean, part of it is they're up there in that attic at 507. We should probably get it out of there only because there's, it's in another building, not being.
It's
Not-
secure.
Is it locked?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Nope, nothing. And he has nothing. He does that whole attic is ours, and there is really actually no place to put it. Unless we brought it
No,
down.
no. I get that.
No.
I'm just saying, rather than pay, how much is it we're paying?
$1,500 a month.
A month. We talked about this, an aggregate amount, because we're doing it for at this point, I think it's it's not just 1 year, right? It's,
No, but we also have to make sure that we can legally, the village is, again, Lieutenant Sylvester is
Yeah.
taking this on as his project. He is looking up to, because they need to do it too, because they have attics filled and they have cellars filled. I mean, they're everywhere. There is nothing, no one has a key except for us and the owner of 507 North State Road, and he has no reason to go up to that attic. And if you've been there, you know it's a horrendous staircase to get up there. I don't even know how they got the stuff up there.
why does he have a key, though? Why does he have a key?
Because if there was an emergency, he has to have a key. There's a heating system up there.
Okay.
So, you can't, And there's nothing, it's all police records. It's not, we have them in our attic up here too. So we have it set up with that, and we're working on that, but we want to get them on electronic. So when someone comes in and asks for a record, you're not crawling up through an attic to look
Right.
for
What do you
police
call
report.
it?
Laserfiche.
It's scanning.
No, I remember microfiche.
Right.
It's very close to that.
But that was in the 90s.
But that was in the olden days. But the other thing that you have with that too is that you have with Laserfiche, if you scan something in, you have a million. We did the same thing with the courts. We scanned everything in the courts. We used a Sarah grant for that too. So what happened was you couldn't just scan it in because you'd have folders everywhere. You know, you'd have folders on all these
Right.
computers. So with Laserfiche, it consolidates it much more, and it actually worked out great.
So this is going to be something.
Oh, it's a top
It's a
priority.
priority. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what okay.
The next question was about the veteran services budget.
Okay, so this veteran service budget, right now we put $4,000 in the line, and Michael G uses it. Now, we buy wreaths, and more wreaths. That's what we buy with it.
Flags.
And flags.
Okay.
So if we want to sit down with Michael G., and we have asked him, because the wreaths are plastic, to have them. We had 1 year, we got the village, because it's usually in Nelson Park. We got the village to take them down before they get all messed up, and the American Legion took them and they used them for a second time. I see no reason you can't use plastic wreaths more than once, but we have to convince.
Michael G doesn't want flags made in China.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that whole line is
I'm
controlled.
just throwing that
Well,
out there.
I think the question. So okay, because the question was then, could we add $2,500 or $2,000 for $500 for each of the legions they've asked?
Well, they're all
for
using
some-
them. Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's for the. I guess the question is this for the same things? When I had a conversation, it wasn't about wreaths. It was budgeting for things that they could possibly do on some of their facilities, Parker Bale, 506, the Sing Sing, except for the VFW, which
Repairs
is in the
and
same
buildings?
place. No, I mean, I guess just stuff in the.
Well, they would have to come to us with a proposal. I don't see. First of all, I think we need to control that line a little bit more. So then we have to, and then if somebody had something that they needed us to do, to me, it's very similar to. I don't know what you can't just hand people money. What is $500? That would be gone in like 15 minutes. So I would say, what is it that they want to do? Have them come and make a presentation to us. Did they go to their villages too? You know what I mean? Did they go to Briarcliff? Did they go to the village of Ossining? Everybody has
a
these.
conversation about it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think we need to and understand that it may not seem like. First of all, $500 is not a lot of money, but when you start talking about $2,000, it's actually bringing something up another quarter of a point. and
I'll
we have
take
to be very
$500.
careful.
It's a lot of money.
So, okay.
Okay, so the next batch of questions are about the 25 new trees
Oh,
in
yeah.
Ryder
We
Park.
could just go into the trees. I'm not.
Okay, so the playground, surround around the playground got taken out today. Was going to be taken out today anyway because
Okay.
they borrowed the excavator from the cemetery.
That wooden stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was bad.
They're going to put plastic in there in the spring. They're going to
Okay.
leave it alone for the winter.
Thank you.
The 25 trees we got from NYSERDA, was it? NYPA. So what happened? Yeah. So they said we want to put in trees that are supposed to be here, not trees that, not pine trees. So we got maple trees and we got red maple trees, and we split it with the village. And Henry decided that he wanted to create an area that is not really a sledding area because I walked it, and if I can walk it, I can't walk up a sledding hill. So
It's for little kids. I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
know, yeah.
what the little kids. But
There's
so
other
why did
places
they
other than-
determine to put
because
25
he wants
trees
to,
there?
because they want to create an area where you can actually, as the trees get bigger, you can actually put some picnic tables over there. So when you're there and they wanted to make it more of a area that they could do that. And so it's a decision that was made, and the trees are there. And I'll tell you, when I bring up trees to people, they go, "Oh, let's get more trees."
No,
you know?
listen, I have nothing against trees. I think trees are great. We should absolutely plant more trees in life. I just think that there's a strategic way. Ryder Park is a pretty wooded area. There aren't that many open spaces in Ryder Park that are not baseball fields, and there's a camp that goes in there. So if you plant 25 trees in one of the fields that was open, that now is cut off for
Yeah, but
the
we,
kids. So
but
I'm,
they don't do the camp over there. They do the camp up at the pavilion, and they do the camp down by where they used to play football. You have that whole football field that they don't use anymore because they moved the football over to Cedar Lane Park. So
Right.
you have that whole field over there, and it was to Ryder Park is a passive park, and it just was to put some more trees there. It was a decision made by the Parks Department. You know,
25 is a lot. I think this is a conversation they could have had with some of the public, especially,
Recreation Advisory Board was brought before them.
yes. Yeah. So it's. Yeah, so, and again, we lost a lot of trees. We had a lot of ash trees up by the playground, and that particular, those ash trees are all dying off. Very similar. The village put a lot of their maple trees into the Nelson Sitting Park. So some people could say, well, they're putting the trees there. So it's there. We got a great deal. They were mature enough that they will survive. It was good drainage. They set it all up. Remember
They were free? They were given? Or?
No, we each buy one get one free, but we paid $800 each for 25, so that was a great deal. So each municipality paid. So we got a really good deal on them. They came. They were hand delivered from a tree farm. It was like a major thing. So we did get some more trees that were purchased, which are going into Cedar Lane Park, because a lot of the trees that surround the walk around the park had died. So those have to be removed. We removed a big tree over at Veterans Park. It will be one of our last things that we do over there because we're handing the park back in January, thank God. And so we have that.
Was there any question about why not putting some of those trees in Ryder along the area that has all that drainage saturation portion?
Because they need to do tremendous amount of work over there still.
You mean
Right.
between the road and the tennis courts?
Between, I think the back part, no, isn't it where
Where the culvert
Over
is.
by the.
yeah.
Is this what they were discussing about putting the baseball and?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right in
Yeah.
that
Oh,
vicinity.
yeah, right.
So it's the side, it's the, where the house, the blue house is in there? Okay, so it's that field right in behind there, so that's where they put the trees. There's still the whole football field. We'd had the old trailer removed, that went out with when the excavator helped remove that today. So we got that
Yeah,
out of there, which
okay.
was a major thing because that was a hazard. That was disgusting in there. And one of the other things that you brought up was
The wall.
the wall is a
wall.
capital project.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a capital project.
Okay.
It's in the capital projects, and then
Okay.
tremendous amounts of people do use Buck Johnson Park. We had been asked not to over-advertise it because we wanted to do a big opening. So once we let people know that that's a real all Buck Johnson is a playground. There is nothing else there. So. In Ryder, we put the swings and we put minimum stuff so people could use it. Little kids could use it while their brothers and sisters were playing baseball. It was almost like for that.
Okay.
So,
You have to carefully wash that because
yeah,
it's close to the creek.
yeah. The Buck Johnson, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so the next two have to do with capital projects. So the crumbling wall in Ryder, and then also the spray park. We just got
Right.
the engineering report on Monday.
May, June, July, August, September, October, November. 7 months just to get the engineering reports.
I know.
It was crazy. They got one of the top engineers got hit by a car. It was like, if it could have gone wrong, it went wrong. So once it got to a point, then there's not that many people that do recirculation, and so so the guy writes me this big apology letter. So we're moving forward. And we have to use them to go through the health department, Westchester County Health Department. So we'll get it first thing. I said it must be done
I was going to
early spring. We can't go through you know,
Not
keeping
another
the,
season.
when Sue's running down there on Sunday saying, we'll open the park to,
Yes.
you know, so we had a lot of that, you know, so we understand that. We wanted to get it done in the fall. We did have some, you know, we had some issues because we had to have, get into a sewer line. Those are Westchester County sewer lines, you know, so they took care of a lot of that
So
stuff.
we got the report, and now where would it be? We're gonna go to Department of Health?
They go to the department.
They're gonna go to Department of Health?
Thank God.
So do we know, Sue, how long estimate for them? I know, but now we have
Can
winter.
Stick to budget questions.
Yeah.
I think this is more like policy
Yeah.
stuff. What they're going to do with the budget.
I just wanted you
with
to
the
know that
water
we're at
policy.
that point with that, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's that one. All right, so then you had the engineer, it was the same thing as before, we talked about that before.
what the two Cedar Lane Park bonds were.
Yeah, I just
Oh.
noticed, I actually didn't look that up, but I'll email you all
Okay,
about it in
that's
the
fine.
morning.
We
Then
did
the
the
engineer
engineer,
we
right,
did,
it's
the
the
finance
same.
IMA is very similar. It's distributed across the funds based on how much money is in each fund, because that's how much work the finance department has to do.
Well, is that, so was I right, though? So we have one, like 158 in the general line and
There's
84?
there's one in each fund. So general fund, unincorporated, highway, cemetery, sewer, North State Road sewer, water, fire,
It's about
refuse.
400.
These are obviously the biggest ones
Well, that's
because
what I
there's
was-
the most amount of money in them. Once you start trickling down to like the water fund, trickle, and it's a much smaller amount of money, the percentage is smaller, and so the percentage taken out of that fund is smaller.
What
So
are you-
the
what are you
overall
referring to?
IMA for finance?
The
is about
finance IMA?
$400,000?
It's about, what is it, the total amount? Tom, do you know what it is? The IMA
And you're
for,
worth every.
They are.
I mean, it's a lot of, but what is it? Is it salaries?
yeah,
It's IT
Oh.
services and
It's IT and finance.
but,
Wait, so what page is that?
Well, it's all over the budget.
it's
yeah,
all-
there's one.
But
Like
that's
I
what-
said, there's one in each fund. So what it is in total, like I said, I could
There was
email.
a separate fund for IT, wasn't
No, there's
there?
not. I could email you the number for the finance IMA, including the IT portion tomorrow. It
Okay.
does go up by the cost of living increase every single year, but other
Okay.
than that, it doesn't change. So it's a base number from when they signed the IMA in 1906 or whenever it was, and then it goes up by
Okay.
CPI
Many
index
years.
If
every
you
year.
could send me that, that would be great.
Yep,
And
it's
it's-
roughly
and the-
400.
Yeah.
I mean, it's somewhere in that neighborhood.
And they do everything, but please understand, they do payroll, they do all our financing, they are here when the auditors are here, they meet with us continuously. It is a excellent service that we get for that bang for our buck, let's call it that. Yeah.
The next thing is about the contingency account and the 20 fund. So you're correct, $50,000 for 1720. $100,000 is what we just off the top of our heads decided was appropriate for the fund. And then as we discussed a couple of weeks back, in order to get back up to the zero and not have a decrease, we put every extra dollar that would bring us to the zero. So that's the 84.
Okay.
So there was a
You got
misstatement.
it again?
I'm falling behind now.
Okay.
As soon as I find something that I'm.
Yeah.
then
All
I
right.
So,
get
so,
stuck.
so let me just say one thing. It was a misstatement when it said you have 50, how many roads do you think you're going to fix for $50,000? Well, we don't have $50,000. We put $100,000 in there. We put the
What?
84,552 because that was every penny that we had. And then we,
Okay, 'cause this is
and then
more
we
than
also had the
that.
$50,000 in
Finance IMA, but
contingency
hold on.
towards the, in each of the two funds. We put that into contingency of the two funds for the 1720 lawsuit.
We're just catching up.
Okay.
A second.
Okay,
Okay?
page 12.
So you see the 50,000 is put separate. Then the contingency, which is what probably would have gone in no matter what.
No matter what.
Is 100,000. And
Right.
then to bring it back up to the
emergency
zero
money.
from
It's
where we
emergency
were, that's every additional dollar. So you see in the requested stage is a little bit
And the ours
lower.
takes,
Then
yeah.
we found out
It's
after
low.
cutting a couple of things that we had a couple more dollars to play with, it went up to 89,630.
Okay.
Okay?
So as things come in, and let's say something comes in and it's not 6%, and we budgeted for 8% because we wanted to be conservative, but we have an exact number now. We put the exact number in. Okay.
The next one is one of Northern's favorite topics. A refresher on what we pay the SPCA for.
Can I just go back again?
Yeah.
I'm not really understanding the discrepancy here of, so you have the actual in 2000, for the contingency,
Mm-hmm.
they were previously budgeting $92,000 we were budgeting $92,000 in 2014.
What page are you on?
12.
This is the page 12 of the unincorporated.
Okay.
So this is just a question about the contingency
Right.
fund. I don't understand why we were so right now we're budgeting $234,000 for contingency?
Yes.
Because that's our money to use, Eric. That's our
Yes.
money to use. And we said we put the extra money in that to use for tax, so we don't have to bond for all the road work we have to do. That's,
What was number 3 again? The 84,630?
Okay, let me slow
Go
down
ahead.
just a little bit, okay? So we already knew the 50,000 we had to do, so that's off the
the
table.
lawsuit.
Bless you.
Right.
$100,000 is what we see like in, well, I guess not because we had it in the highway. So just for a general year, when we didn't expect anything to be going on, in the 20 fund, we might budget $80,000, $90,000, just as a cushion, just to have in case we have expenses that come up, which they generally do. So what Sue was talking about a couple minutes ago, because we are saving money in the police contract, now our 20 fund expenses are going down. We saved even more money in the 20 fund because of having sold the building. So now our expenses for 2015 are much lower than they were for 2014, which is why many of the residents expected a tax decrease.
Right.
But as the supervisor explained, you can't do that because once you go down, then you can only crawl up by 2% ever again and forever, and you never be able to gain back that section that you lost. So this section that you
Now-
lost is the 89,630.
Now I understand.
Now, if the board has conversations over the next week
Yes.
that says we want to change X, Y, and Z in the 20 fund, that 89,630 is what will change. So if you decide you want to throw $5,000 more at something, that'll come down to 84,630, and so on. That number is basically just whatever is left to even it to zero.
Should we have a line item entry title for that?
You do. It's contingency.
well,
Well,
and,
number 3 has no
okay,
line.
but
Oh,
you
we
have
could.
to, yeah,
You could call it whatever you want.
but in these are your budgets.
You know,
The budget online says 234,000. There is no 1, 2, and 3.
okay.
Understand that.
Okay.
It's, okay?
Got
It's a
it.
summary
And this
budget.
is just the unincorporated. What about the general? Is there a contingency?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
line it? Okay.
There's $50,000 for the court case.
Right.
And
then
then
there's another, I don't want to say off the top of my head, maybe like another 60,000, something like that.
But when we got here, it used to be 20. Okay, so it used to be
Right.
25,000.
I'm sorry, it's
right?
50 and 50 in the general fund. So 50
So-
for annexation
so-
and 50
For
for
So
just
it used to be
general.
25,000, and I came out of the village where it was, would throw into contingency just off the cuff, you would throw $250,000 just because you don't want to go into your fund balance. You
Right.
want to use your contingency if you have
Right.
something that comes up.
Okay.
Are you good on that or?
Totally good.
Okay.
I was just
No,
a
this
little
is
slow.
important.
No, it's.
You explained it earlier, and I heard you explain it. It just didn't sink in
Because
until you did
Northern's
it
dying to
twice.
get to the SPCA.
I was picturing, like in math class that you have to color in the difference. I was picturing showing you this
Yes.
part is yellow, this triangle.
Okay.
So the SPCA. So the SPCA on North State Road takes in our community's less fortunate animals, and also basically.
Pet project of Maddie.
I'm trying to remain neutral here. It basically serves as, for lack of a better word, a repository for animals that are collected by animal control officers. We had the woman who's the director, her name is Shannon, come in and do a presentation when this first came up. Was that? I think it was right before you were elected, right?
I was here.
Yeah. So she kind of went through the spiel, but basically, it is a nonprofit organization. It's something that does serve our community. So there's a service that we receive from them, certainly, but it's not sort of like a.
Does the village pay them too?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And the amount has been the same for many years that they charge
But one
us.
of the things that just came up recently was that somebody was talking about what a shambles it is and stuff, and the next day,
Yeah.
we got notification that they were going to do a whole new building over there.
It happens to be the oldest SPCA in the United States.
I may have
Yeah.
made a comment or two about how they needed to upgrade, which
Yep,
might
well-
have been why I asked what we pay for.
Yep. And so basically what they notified us that for 2016, we may have to find another location for this service because they're basically tearing down the entire campus and building a new one. So they wanted to give us a year lag to be aware of the fact that we might need to.
No.
I don't want to talk about that cat. I get very upset.
I want to be involved in their plans to make sure that they build more cages that have walls so that the dogs are not outside all night howling.
So that the dogs can't see and they just live in the
No,
dark.
they
and
they're
miserable.
soundproof
Yeah.
for the rest of the
Oh, my God. Okay.
Manny, before we.
Yeah,
You okay? Take your water.
Is animal control separate from SPCA?
Animal control is sort of like a catch-all category. It means capturing fluffy animals that we want to keep and also harnessing animals that we do not want to keep. So the SPCA obviously takes care of dogs, cats, pets. We also have Mr. Horton is our contracted animal control officer, and for the unincorporated area, and that's going to change next year,
Because
obviously,
of the
because we have the village officer
But
who's
we
going to
put it
be
as
doing
part
it.
of
So
the
we save $5,000 there.
Is it Ryan?
It's the same, it's the police.
It's in the police contract. But basically what purpose that gentleman serves is in case, we had a snapping turtle or something in Cedar Lane Park.
Or
Or a coyote. Go get the coyote.
rabbit.
Rabid
Right.
Animal?
So animal control is what that is generally. But there's a separate line in the budget for the SPCA contract.
Yeah. It's two different things. We didn't understand how important the animal control was the first year I was here, so we just didn't renew our contract until New York State came down on us.
Wasn't there a woman, a lady doing this?
No, it's Jim Norton? Horton?
Jim Horton?
Jim Horton?
Yes.
Not to be
That's-
confused with Tim Horton, the coffee company, because I used to call
It's
him that.
Quality Pest Control is the company. I'm not sure who you're talking about.
No,
'Cause
it was a lady. Oh, God, never mind.
He might have been at SPCA.
the lady who
but
gave the
no.
SPCA presentation is the director.
No, not that. It was either a woman and her father, or something of that nature. You don't remember them?
Yeah, but they're probably gone.
They must be.
Probably retired. Probably retired, taking care of animals somewhere else, yeah.
So, how would the unincorporated until the end of the year? Now it's almost the end, but how would they know how to contact the?
Call police.
Yeah, so you could call the police, and then they would put you in touch with the.
They
Is it
go-
only fluffy animals that we want to keep, Maddie?
Yeah, well,
I just want no. You said the
I'm
fluffy.
trying to think of the calls that we've gotten.
Snakes.
I mean, I think generally speaking, because of their mission, they'll try to find a home for
Coyotes.
anything that can be domesticated. I
Coyotes.
know that they've had. Well, no, at SPCA, I know that
Oh,
they've
yeah,
had
they were
rabbits
taking
and
care of
lizards and stuff
I'm
before,
just
but I
saying,
don't.
you said the fluffy animals
Well, the
that
best
we want
is-
to keep, and the rest of them we don't. So you were just
The
you
best is it's like a learning thing too, because like people will call them and say there's a snake in Cedar Lane Park, and they have to go up there and say it's a park. and there are snakes there, that are.
That's a tame example. You don't want to know some of these phone calls.
Well,
Holy,
okay,
got some wildlife in the town.
moving on. So now we'll
right.
go to Eric questions.
I've been waiting patiently for my turn.
Yeah.
So So we talked about. Okay. So I'm on page 2 of 50 for the general fund.
Right.
Fines and forfeitures. Is this the same idea where you've only collected so much by October,
Yes.
but we seem to be budgeting?
August.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Thank you, Tom, for being there.
Okay.
We are on page 2, about 3/4 of the way down.
He's finished there.
Yeah. I'm
Oh,
done.
he's done though.
I got it.
It's moving along though. It's only from August.
I got it.
It's right here.
And Tom, that's generally from court revenues, correct? Right. Yeah. No, we had that question at the
Town hall.
legislative
Oh,
session
the
last
yeah,
week.
right.
Just wanted to make sure.
So I have this question pretty much across
What
the
is
board.
what is the page on?
Okay, so for this particular page is 6 out of 50, but it's a question that I have a lot about
Yep.
salaries across the board.
Okay.
So this is just by example. This is the town justice. So this is the court. When you look at the salaries, it appears that each of the salaries is being increased. I don't know. Maybe I'm misinterpreting this by 2% over the previous year's salary, right? So if everybody's increased by 2%, then the net increase should be 2% across the board, right? But if you look at the 2015 request, recommended, and adopted stage, it's all $356,000. That's a $30,000 increase. I'm sorry, a 30% increase. So how do you go from a 2% increase to 30%,
It's 2% on each salary,
right?
okay? And then we also get a chargeback, if you look at line 10, we have a chargeback to the village of $15,000,
Wait,
right?
hold
But
the
if you
phone.
go- if
How
you
are
go
you
from-
seeing 30% from
If your actual
Oh, no,
expenditure
actuals
is
as of
276.
of
no,
October?
Of October. It's a
We
whole,
haven't completed the year yet.
So this is actual salaries
as
paid?
of the date, always as of the report
okay.
date at the top of
Okay.
your report.
So
then-
So if
then
you
what
got
we'd have
this
to do is look
next
for the
week, it would be
adjusted
all
budget.
different numbers in that.
you can
yeah.
look
The
back to
351.
2013 actual, which was 362,601
Yeah.
at the end of the year,
Mm-hmm.
and that's changed just a little bit because one of our employees in the court, who was making a higher rate than all of these folks,
Left.
resigned
Retired,
mid-year, and we
resigned.
replaced them with a lower
Okay, good.
pay level.
Okay, then.
Yep.
Okay, I'll skip that. There's another salaries question.
And the 2% is the negotiated with the CSEA. Right.
More salaries, okay. So that answers that across the board. Thank you. Same there. Okay, franchise fees and alarm fines we talked about.
Oh my God. I asked someone to evaluate something and they made it a joke and it's not good.
Okay, so I see that I'm gonna keep coming up with that issue
Oh, yeah,
on a number of items that I've
It's very,
flagged,
yeah,
but that's gonna get better.
when you're really looking at the budget, if you look at the actual for 2013
Mm-hmm.
or the 2012, 2013, and then you look over to, you can see what the budget is
Right.
for 2014, but then you see what we're looking for. And to remember, you know, we have people change, we have people leave, we get new people, you know, and then we can start them at a lower step, but then suddenly the steps start escalating very quickly. I mean,
Right.
you know, some people go, like a Teamster might go from $53,000 and in 2 years or 3 years they're at $78,000. It's just, the steps is steps, and it's, you know, it's all civil service. It's a totally different payroll kind of system, so.
So I'm in the cemetery fund,
Okay.
page 1 of 11, prepared by Maddie.
Yes, he's,
All right, so at the top there, it says interments, or I don't know if that's bulk sales, but there's a change from 227,000
There sure is.
down to 41.
'cause
Yep.
we get no more bulk sales.
We're
Okay.
done with our bulk sales.
Okay.
Except
So
for
then,
the burying of the bulk sales.
and then going down to the bottom now, you have the $100,000 transfer from general fund. Is that something that's going to happen every year now, or is
We
that
can
just
only pray it's only that much, yeah.
okay?
That's why. That is all, it's to do, it is to, in order to have just enough staff to maintain the cemetery. We went down to 2 people, we went down to 1 person running the cemetery, which is, and he's at a retiree rate of $30,000, thank God, he's very dedicated. And, that is the minimum we can do right now to run that cemetery, because we are not a closed cemetery. We're still burying a lot of people. We have all these Asian burial plots that are done. We do get money for opening the internments. We do get money for the foundations. We have caught up with all the work that had to be done out there. We've cleaned up the cemetery, so we just, again, it's just something that we watch every single day. But a town is required by law to take over a cemetery that is abandoned, and and then they had a few years where they sold these bulk plots, but tremendous amounts of money were spent in those couple of years, and now. We're going to have to, but what we did was we kept some of the money, so we put, we have enough money to put some of it back in, but we will have to spend about we hope only $100,000 a year because it still takes 3 people to bury someone. You have to open up the graves, you have to do everything.
I understand utilizing money from the line. I will say, I would say and will say that I would like further discussions at another time about I really think that somebody should be at the cemetery doing the paperwork. It just makes me uncomfortable that there's nobody at the site.
Well, I think
who's
you need to go, first of all, Pete is there from 7 o'clock in the morning until the end of day, and he is constantly there. He does a lot of the paperwork himself, and I think you have to understand more, and a later discussion, and go over there and understand what it actually takes to do the paperwork. It's like anything else. It's not as big of a project as some people sometimes make it to be.
I'm happy to learn more about it. I am. I just, at this point, I state a concern that there's nobody there who I feel like is, there were, thoughts about me, I just think that there should be somebody there that's administering it and we could talk about that
You can talk about it, but I want to tell the public right now that Pete Conley is doing that. He is doing an exceptional job. He is actually, we had a 3-week hiatus of selling plots. We are now selling local plots, and he's doing an exceptional job of administrating and running the crew at Dale Cemetery.
Okay. Can I have some more budget questions?
Sure.
Great. So the finance IMA. So you talked about this a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still in the cemetery portion, page 4 of 11.
Mm-hmm.
This is the financing IMA. So this is 9. So for the past several years, between $15,000 and $20,000 of the finance IMA is paid for cemetery. And
What line are you on?
this is page 4, item 1. There's only one item on that page.
Okay, sorry about
So it calls for
Yep.
2012 was 15,000, 2013 was 20,000, 14 was 17,000, and now we're requesting $9,000. So that's a pretty dramatic drop. So what is the drop? And just in the general question, this is what you were talking about earlier, where the finance IMA, their budget is piecemeal, comes a little bit from each of the departments.
Mhm.
And what's the total amount? You said it was close to 400?
Yeah.
It's a bit over 400.
Right.
But
Okay.
yeah. So there are 2 things here. The first thing that I would direct your attention to is 2014 actual per. So you see how we've gone over from what we originally had anticipated doing for that line.
Mm-hmm.
As you recall, we did a separate audit for Dale Cemetery this year.
Right.
So that's something that needs to be noted in this line.
I see.
Second thing is that what we were talking about, the finance IMA, much like many of the other things that we've spoken about, are apportioned based on the amount of money over the town's entire budget. So what we were just talking about the bulk sales, that was a couple extra $100,000 a year, which would entail that fund being bigger and taking more time of the finance office. So that pie sort of changes depending on how much money is coming in or out of a fund on a given year. Because we have no more bulk sales in 2015, there's a lot less money for the finance office to work on.
Right.
So
Very good. You guys are so smart, the way you figure this all out. It's pretty amazing. I thought that there were overtime charges in 2014.
where are you?
So now page 8, still in the cemetery fund. Page 8, if you go down 3/4 of the way to the bottom, there are salary amounts, and the line 6 under the salary amounts is for overtime. There's a 0.
Right.
Yep.
And I thought that there had been overtime in the past. Don't I remember that there were that?
Absolutely. We used to budget for overtime in the cemetery. Basically, for everyone looking, so we're about 2/3 down the page, the line that says Dale Management Contractual Payment. And so in the past, as you may recall, there were different employees working there at different rates of pay. And there was also one of the small subsections was for overtime that would be sort of parsed out at the discretion of the administration in the cemetery. We basically determined that for two reasons, both because we don't anticipate the need and then also because the money is just really not there. We can't really afford to do the overtime. We think that it should be sufficient at this point to have an administrator and then the two folks doing the work and then a third to come in, for when a burial is necessary. But overtime is not really something that's necessary at this point, nor can we really afford it.
Well, I think that one of the things that by having someone there and being totally dedicated to giving out work orders as to what he wants done that day, he has gotten a tremendous amount of work done there. And so we're moving forward, and it's a full day's work for full day's pay, and I think that's a Teamster line, so, which is not necessarily what was happening before.
Silly question. So I'm now I think I'm into water now. Water sewer fund. Again, I hate to nickel and dime, but this is when something jumps off the page. It's not so much about the
Where
dollars
are
as the page 5 of 10 in the judgment. Yeah, this one is
prepared by Maddie.
Maddie.
Yeah.
Judgment and claims. So in 2012 and 13, there were entries for somewhere around $10,000. 2014, there are zeros for the budget amounts, but actual $14,000. And now I just don't understand why there's so much fluctuation between the zeros and the why some are $10,000 years and why some are 0,000 years.
We actually can't really budget for this because this is when we have tax certs and scars to pay out. So basically, you're not raising money from the tax base in order to fund this line. It's when you do the borrowing, so when you do the bans and the bonds. So once that money comes in, then depending on what the refund looks like for customer A, customer B, it's apportioned back to this line to be charged. So again, in 2012 we spent X, in 2013 we spent Y, but if you looked back, you'll see that we budgeted 0 for both of those years because there's no way to anticipate.
Thank you. That answers the question.
And Maddie also prepared the little stickers, too, that go on.
Okay, still in townwide water, page 1 of 6.
Sanitary, 1 of 6.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to make sense.
There's first 10 and then 6.
Okay, so this is all right.
So you're in water.
Oh, yeah.
Page 1.
Yeah.
Water page 1.
Mhm.
So we're talking about there's a bunch of line items there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going down. Do you see that?
Yes.
So at number 5 it says add amount over the 2% cap of fund, but for 2015 it shows about $25,000 over the cap, which actually doubles the amount over all of the budgeted prior years.
This
So I'm just
is
curious.
we did a water project, and this is the first year we're doing a bond payment. And as we said in our opening statement, that this is the one line that went up 97%, but it went from, which meant it meant from 50 cents per thousand assessed to 97 cents a thousand assessed. We buy the people that live in the unincorporated area buy their water from the village of Ossining, so this is really for water projects. So we did a capital project on Stormy Town Road and Cedar Lane, and to get the water clean, to get better water pressure, and to help out at Cedar Manor Nursing Home. And for the fire department. It was a big request from the fire department. So we did that project. We have to pay for that project. So, but it's $53,000 or $55,000 at the end of the day, which comes out to an enormous tax rate of nothing because it's 50 cents on the dollar. So
Right, okay.
50
So-
cents compared to 97 cents, yeah.
Got it. So then when I go down to page 6 of 6 of that same
Yep,
block of townwide water,
yep.
now you have towards the bottom, the total fund 50, 050, townwide water, do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
where you're starting with 16,000, then it, for some reason, in 2013 jumps to 114,000, back down to close to 40,000. So I'm just curious why, what are these fluctuations? Is that similar for capital projects? Because now in 2015, we're asking for, I don't know. I
We're
guess it's
asking
only
for the
20.
bond payments of the,
Oh, so
of
this
the,
is more
yeah.
bond payments for capital projects?
Wait, can I ask a question though? Don't we, I'm a little confused. Don't the unincorporated town people pay a higher rate for water due to the fact that I thought it was the village that took care of the infrastructure?
That's a fee.
I'm,
Fire chief? Oh, the fire chief, oh, the fire chief election just went on. I'm going.
So this.
oh, is that what that is?
What the supervisor was just saying is.
Wait,
what-
hold on. Yay, fire chief!
For those that can't hear, there are sirens in the background.
And evidently it's because
The new fire chief.
there's a new fire chief that was
Well,
elected.
it's the third in line now, so yeah.
Is this is this?
This is tradition.
No, I know, but can we say the name? It's Matt Scarduzio, right?
No. That
No.
he takes over. He takes over January 1st as the fire chief.
Chief.
Then there's two deputy chiefs. So
Right.
then Angelo moves up, and the gentleman that was elected, it happened to be
Oh,
a
I
gentleman
see.
that was elected tonight, moves up into the third slot, and then every 2 years they move
Is
up.
that what this is about? The third,
the
the
third
third
guy,
slot.
yeah.
So who's the third slot?
Do you remember?
Do
his
we
name?
know?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah.
Officer Manny
DeCruz.
DeCruz. Okay, there we go. So
Okay, yeah. So getting back to
infrastructure. What was
this.
fee? What?
Right. So we're talking about two different things. When you talk about the town water fund, you're talking about the property taxes to maintain the infrastructure in the unincorporated area. When you talk about somebody's water bill in the unincorporated area and it's 1.5 times what the village pays, that's a fee. That doesn't have anything to do with our budget at all. That's a fee. So that's outside of this 2%.
That's just a fee for us buying the water.
That's a
Right.
service fee.
So, I was
So
always under
it's-
the impression that it was because
Because they take care of, the reason that you pay 1.5 times is because they take care of the water filtration plant. The village bonds for all they bond for all the improvements that are done out there. They,
Okay, so
that's what that is.
Okay.
That's not to do a water,
Okay.
water project.
Right,
And that's
okay.
what this is, a water project. So.
So now, I didn't see this here, so I'm sort of looking for something that I don't see, which is, if we eliminated one of the lift stations, should there be a zero?
Okay, that's sewer. We don't want you to confuse sewer with water. Please don't confuse
It's
sewer.
all in that
So-
same tab, though. So the
Yeah,
sewer is
right.
the
Yeah.
first one,
Oh, well, that
then
was first.
water,
I just don't want
then
people
North
to think
State
a lift
Road
station
sewer.
is water.
Right.
A lift station is all sewage.
And
So-
actually-
is there a zero for 2015?
Well, it's never going to be a zero because what we have in the sewer contract, there's a company that services our
Lift stations?
sewer lift stations. I'm looking for the page.
I
Like
have
if you
page
see
7
on
of
page
10.
7 of 10, exactly. So you see that there are some fees sort of spread across maintenance and repair, the telephone lines for the emergency phones at the lift stations. Michael G has asked us to keep them consistent because, as you can see from past years, they do kind of move around a little bit. But as we go forward, like the Lakeville sewer station that just got shut down, I just got a notification for our electricity company that now we can turn off that account. So that's going to save us like $100 a month in electricity costs. So I think once we have enough of a volume shift, we can try to get a new contract with the sewer lift station company to reduce that number a little bit.
Which is this
Because
year.
it's not changed for many years, and Michael G will tell you in that amount of time, obviously prices have gone up for them, but they've kept the cost steady for us. Now we have less sewer lift stations, and they've still kept the cost steady. So there's probably some room to move, but he
This
would
is the
like
year
us
we're
to
gonna.
keep them
Well, this
where
is
they
the year
are.
we're gonna sit down with them and talk to them because it's not that they go in and they fix everything. This is just for them to do the monthly maintenance on it. So every time it needs a part, you get charged for the part. So basic maintenance on it. So there's at least would you say 4 fewer lift stations?
Stonegate,
fewer?
Stormytown, Lakeville, and
Really?
there's one more from the
I
past
think there-
5
yeah.
years, maybe,
Yeah.
that they've turned into Gravity.
So anyway, but that's what that's all about.
And my last question is, can you just give us a very brief rundown on, say, bonds? I know there were, I don't hear much about bond anticipation notes. Are we doing those?
Hey, Tom Warren,
Hey,
gonna come
Tom.
talk to Eric about bonds?
Here's your, if you turn to your bond payment, if you turn to your bonds,
Right,
which is the last tab,
right, it's the blue one.
the blue tab, and it has in there every single payment schedule for your bond anticipation notes and your bonds. Right, Tom?
Yeah,
So
and then
it's twofold, really. I sort of wanted to run down on bonds. I know we have bond anticipation notes, but I don't hear much about bond anticipation notes recently, and I used to hear a lot more.
ambulance.
And the other one is this sort of, I know that we paid down some bonds, and I don't know if they were callable or if they were called or whatever, but our
police station.
our payments are going down, aren't they, for the police station? So sort of two-part question: bond anticipation notes, the bands, and then the regular bond payments. Just the status.
The bans were mostly on highway equipment. We haven't really been issuing many bans, other than we've been issuing the bans for the Old Albany Road project because that was for cash flow purposes.
As we anticipate money from FEMA.
Right, we have the money from FEMA, when it comes in, is going to retire the bans, and then if there is any left over, it'll be bonded, if there's any additional costs that's left over. We'd also issued a ban on like the Cedar Lane water project, but once that was completed, that was converted to serial bonds. We only come to the board to request new debt if there's a need to request new debt. The bond resolution for the highway equipment that's being paid off, has been in existence for a number of years, and each year, as the ban comes due, we just go out and issue a new ban to replace the old ban until the equipment's fully paid off.
No, I used to hear that there were bans that were issued for paying county for when we had to make the school has to make us whole or something like that. Oh, those are
That
TANs.
was back in, I think, 2010 and 2011, when the town had a very low fund balance, and there was a cash flow crisis, and we had to issue tax anticipation notes
Oh, I see. Right.
to
TAN, not
carry
PAN.
us through the first 4 months of the year until we started collecting the town's own tax levy. But that's what the TANs were for. Now the town's in good financial condition, and that was shown out by the Moody's bond rating. And that was one of the questions that they always ask is there a need to issue tax anticipation notes? Because that's kind of indicative that there might be some fiscal stress, and there isn't, and it's partly why the town's in good financial condition now.
Great. Okay, that's good news. Thank you. So, and now as far as the bond for the police station, the former police station, that is now, we have paid down in advance.
We paid everything that we could possibly pay that was callable. We continue to pay bond payments, and we put in our last callable bond on that will be 2017. And what we did was we took the amount, because we'll save hundreds of $1,000s in interest, and what we did was we took the amount that will be due in 2017, which we now refer to as a balloon payment, just like if you had a balloon mortgage, right? And we took, because this was a good year, we took 50% of that so that we can, of that balloon payment, and we put it away. We put it in a little account so that we know where it is, and it's just for that for that not to be used for anything else. Then what we're going to do is now, because we took the stress off ourselves in 2016, we'll only have to do a 25%. In 2017, we'll only have to do 25%. So we'll be able to do that balloon payment in 2017, and then the entire police station will be paid off.
But
So-
there's no additional payment that we can pay down for
Not yet.
2015?
No. Well, we could just pay our regular payments because they're not callable
But
yet.
not
Yeah.
callable,
Yeah.
right.
We took care of everything that was callable, including money we took out of fund balance at the time so that we could, because we showed that we saved hundreds of thousands of dollars more in interest if we took $200,000 out of fund balance. So you're constantly working with the money all the time, yeah.
I just want to say to the entire finance crew and supervisor, every time I go through a budget, I'm amazed at all the intricacies that are behind the scenes. You guys are wheeling and dealing and making this system, what do they say,
Move.
turn like a well-oiled machine. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's a great job.
And again, so, we're looking for, we're going to go into, I guess we're done then, right?
Well, I just want to make one, I was waiting to see if Mr. Wiltshire, Councilman Wiltshire,
Okay.
Councilman Harder had anything to say before I made I don't want
Oh, you made what?
a last statement.
Oh, no, go right
Go ahead.
So I would ask a change happening to this budget, the supervisor's budget. I believe that we have a superintendent of highways and a receiver of taxes who are well regarded in our town and do a good job and should be well compensated for their jobs. I would ask for this board to think about reinstating fully the salaries of those two professional elected individuals. I just think that that's the right thing to do for many, many reasons that have been discussed. And so I would like us to talk about that as a board. It is for us to decide. It is something that we can think about, and I believe that we should make a decision on that.
I thought there was going to be an executive session.
There is.
for this, and that this
Which is
was
personnel.
What
right.
what we were going to discuss at the executive sessions.
Okay.
Do you have any comments?
I do, but if we're going to
No,
talk about it in
but do you have any
executive
comments
session.
for right now, for this,
No.
for the open session? Do you have any comments?
No,
Okay.
what I had planned, wanted to ask about was that at Cedar Lane Park, out there where the gardens are,
Yes.
you need a fence around that lake, that drive coming up to the building.
Yes.
You
With
need
the,
a-
with
you
the,
need-
pic- with the, like stockade, the little
Well,
fences?
no, it's nothing down there. You run off the road, you run into the lake.
Oh, yeah. Well,
The pond?
that's part of the
pond?
reason.
Road system is
yeah,
interior
that's-
condition.
That's
It is.
part of the
It's like the
reason,
surface
that's
of the
part of the
moon.
reason that, people wanted to rent that Shine House, right, and have parties in it. And I said,
Yeah.
I can't do that, yeah.
Any
Again,
kind of
this-
a fence is better. It doesn't have to be a high one, but
Right.
so
You
people
mean
can
like a
see
guardrail?
it.
A
A
guardrail?
guardrail
So
of
that
any
cars
kind.
don't go into the pond?
Something.
Oh.
At least you could see it.
And knock on wood, because we haven't had a
Okay.
pond, but you know what?
It's really
but-
it's really only a one-lane.
Yeah, I know. But
It
they
should
meet,
be.
You meet cars in there though. People will meet each other.
Yeah.
Oh, we do all the
Because
time.
because it's not a two-way, it's not, it's a two-way street, it's
All
not
the
a
time.
one-way street. So,
Somebody
anyway,
pulling over.
good suggestion. Good suggestion. When we're doing the capital project on the parks, we can definitely look at fence, something, because he did have that, Mario did have that down on his list of
'Cause
of
this is
things.
not
He-
my first
the
time
picket
asking
fence.
about that.
yeah, the picket fence and redoing the dock too and stuff, so.
I just want to say one good thing. The Ossining girls basketball team won 92-22 in their
Oh, my
opening
God.
game today.
92-22, that must have been.
I don't know. I
Who'd
didn't
they
see
walk
who
over?
against, but
Yeah.
I don't know who they
Okay.
played actually, but I
Maybe
just
don't
thought.
wanna know.
Sir, do you have anything to say in public session?
they played, but that's their opening game.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn into executive session
For personnel
and personnel
and legal advice,
and legal advice.
because we always go.
And some heat.
And he,
All those in favor?
Aye.
So good night, and I hope to see a lot of you. This will be not on TV by the time it's over, but tomorrow night is Santa Claus is coming to town, 6:15, and but you will see this before Sunday, and Sunday at noon we will be doing our annual Pearl Harbor Remembrance in the front of the building, right here at 16 Croton Avenue. And please come and join us to show the respect and to honor our veterans that that come out for that. So thank you. Have a great week. And oh, and don't forget, we have a public hearing on the budget next Tuesday. What's the date of next Tuesday? The 9th, December 9th. At 7:30, it'll be the first item on the agenda. So if you have any last comments to make on the budget, the residents have any last budget, or commercial property owners if they want to, please come out. Thank you. Have a great week.